Welcome back to another episode of ROC Boys Football. We are taking a look at this Arkansas Texas A&M matchup. As many of you saw, we talked about this game last night. Unfortunately, I went through the whole video thinking this game was being played in College Station. Idiot. I remember watching this game in Jerry's Palace last year, and I saw it was in Texas, assumed it was in College Station, and then a lot of my analysis or a lot of my takes on the game where that the 12th man is going to be rocking. So we owe it to you guys to run this one back. It is at AT&T Stadium in the Dallas Cowboys Stadium. Dill, I'm going to start to you, but before that, I just want to say thank you guys for all the support you guys have shown the channel. Even when I am making mistakes on where the game is actually being played, you guys have shown a lot of support. We really do appreciate y'all rocking with us. If you guys do like the content, consider subscribing to the channel. And then let us know in the comment section. I mean, the Arkansas Razorback fans and the Aggie fans are legitimately some of the best fans in the country, some of the most passionate fans in the country. So let us know in the comment section what you guys think is happening, what players we need to be watching for. We appreciate you guys. For real, Dill, I'm going to kick it to you. Let's hear your early takes on this game here.
I think this Arkansas team is going to be a problem for Texas A&M. I just think the way you beat Texas A&M so far has been on the ground, and that's not to say Texas A&M's getting gashed or anything, but you look back at that Miami game.
Yeah.
Henry Parrish and Jalen Knighton both put up pretty good numbers, 85 yards, 77 respectively, and averaging about 5.5 a touch. And that's for that many carries, that's a lot of yards to be given up on average. And not really any big plays either.
Yeah, that's an interesting take because Arkansas is – I don't know if there's many offenses in the country – on the ground, I'm taking over Arkansas with KJ Jefferson's ability to just be a linebacker in space pretty much. And then Rocket Sanders, a guy that, okay, I knew he was going to be an aspect of this Arkansas backfield. He's legitimately one of the best running backs in the SEC. I mean, the combination of his ability to catch the ball outside on the perimeter, and then he gains some weight. He's a former wide receiver. He's got straight line speed, but he also runs the ball extremely hard behind a veteran, good offensive line. If Texas A&M can't stop the run, I have a hard time seeing them win this football game. You look back to App State. App State wasn't that efficient running the ball. Outside of a 48-yard run by Cameron Peoples, they were only averaging like almost 3 yards a carry. Like they weren't shredding on the ground. That being said, Texas A&M just couldn't stand the field on offense. And if that happens again versus Arkansas, they will break you down.
Yeah, and that's kind of my issue is I think Arkansas matches up really well with what Texas A&M can't or struggles to deal with on both sides. Like Arkansas hasn't been throwing the ball that great. Granted, I think it should get better. I am still a very much KJ Jefferson believer. I think these wideouts are getting better. I think Landers looks really good. And I think Jaden Hazelwood, I'm just kind of waiting for him.
Shout out Matt Landers. I was talking about him. If you were looking for a guy, not to gas myself up, but during the summer, this guy in Toledo is averaging 25 yards a catch, and he's kind of replacing that vertical threat that they can have. I mean, he can fly, and he's like 6'4".
Yeah, and that's I don't suspect Texas or Arkansas is going to get a ton in the air. I do think like A&M might be one of the best secondaries in the country for sure, and they did what they did against Miami, basically down about 3 starters. I think they had the one cornerback get suspended pregame, and then they lost both the safeties to targeting calls. And when you lose a guy like a Damani Richardson, I mean, and them to perform the way they did, like very, very impressive on defense. So I kind of see this game being a very much a grinded out game. I think Arkansas is going to be able to beat them up a little bit up front. Nothing crazy, but I do think they're going to be able to move the ball on the ground. And if they can move the ball on the ground, they're going to be I just see them being very hard for you.
Yeah, and partly how Texas A&M can avoid getting grinded down is keeping that offense off the field, and that means Max Johnson and the Aggies are going to need to stay on the field, which has been a struggle for them. I went back and watched every single offensive snap for Texas A&M. Dill, we're going to disagree with this. I didn't think Max Johnson was he was better than what we saw with Haynes King. Like, he's clearly the quarterback. That's not saying much, though. Max Johnson won. They apparently were giving Haynes King the starting role not only because he's been there for 3 years, but they liked his athletic ability. Max Johnson, he's a pretty damn good athlete as well, and what he does is he uses his legs to extend plays a little bit. Now, being down Evan Stewart, being down Chris Marshall, those wide receivers weren't getting much separation. I think when Max Johnson was wasn't being protected that great. And then when he was having a clean pocket, he was throwing to guys that were kind of blanketed. It's a good Miami secondary. I'm looking forward to seeing Evan Stewart, Chris Marshall back, and Texas A&M having all these offensive weapons and seeing if they can finally put it to use and put that on the field.
A&M really needs Evan Stewart because at the end of the day, I love Aeneas Smith, but I don't think he's a guy you want to be able to be followed by a number one corner, and then you can kind of ignore the rest of the team. And that's a little bit how it shook out, I think, against Miami.
100% did.
Aeneas was the guy getting all the attention. He was getting a fair amount of the targets, and he was just covered up a fair amount of the game. He's just a guy you want to be able to use in other ways. I just don't think you want him as your number one. And on the other hand, Evan Stewart with the size and the athleticism in the inside, he just looks the part of a number one.
He's rare. As an 18-year-old, I know you might even be 17. Like as a true freshman, he looks different. And it's rare to see guys at any position in college football, but especially at that wide receiver spot. Like you think about like Jamar Chase. I'm not saying he's Jamar Chase, but Jamar Chase stepped on the field as a true freshman and was like, he's a dog. Yes. And you get similar vibes from Evan Stewart. Like he's coming in as an 18-year-old and he looks like the best wide receiver on this team. He was very much missed. Another thing that, the offensive line has struggled. That's no secret. Another thing in it, I'm being a little armchair quarterback here. I just think Jimbo Fisher's offense is like from the past. Nothing he seemed dialed up was working. Running the screens, running the draws.
There's a lot of slants and a lot of outs.
And there was no separation. There was no vertical passing game. I don't know how many. Max Johnson has a very good arm.
In fairness, they don't have vertical threats without Evan Stewart, though. So there's that element. And I think you wish Chase Lane would develop into that guy, but it just maybe at this point you don't think that's happening. So Evan Stewart is kind of that guy. So I'll give him that. They were playing very much handicapped on both sides of the ball. However, I still I don't trust this offense at all. The offensive line really needs to play better. And I think Arkansas, if this was last year's Arkansas team who played rush 3, dropped 8 every play pretty much, I'd be like, oh, well, I can kind of see how Texas A&M could do some work because their offensive line can be protected a little bit. But the way they're using a Drew Sanders and a Landon Jackson and getting more proactive with their defensive line, getting pressure, that's not a good mix for A&M.
I love Bill. The biggest criticism we had with Arkansas was just their tendency to play that bend but don't break, or we're going to drop 8, avoid the big play, and we're only going to rush 3. They have the dogs to get more aggressive. You think back, Trey Williams was a dude that I would like to see a little bit more, rushing the passer and having better chances to impact the quarterback. This year, they're getting after it a little bit more. You're seeing their secondary suffer a little bit when you look at the stats. Arkansas has kind of been getting shredded through the air. They're allowing 352 yards per game through the air. I think partially guys like Jaden Catalan out for the year. Losing some key members in the secondary, you're starting true freshmen there who probably shouldn't be starting for the next couple of years. They're forced into action. You're seeing some breakdowns. Texas A&M can hit a few of those.
That's my problem is what makes you think A&M is going to hit that's what they're going to need to do. That's how you beat this Arkansas team. I just don't think that A&M they're just not hitting big plays against anyone right now.
Yeah, I feel like such an idiot taking A&M because I look at this roster and I'm like, this should be such a sick roster. Evan Stewart, Aeneas Smith, Devin Achane, Chris Marshall, and they just can't produce on the offensive side of the ball. And I feel like the one game, so we were on A&M last week, we ended up cashing it, not really because the offense was any good. This week, I feel like I go against Arkansas, and you're all going to see Evan Stewart and Smith. They're going to make some plays down the field. This game's a toss-up. It's not one that I'm itching to bet on. You're a little bit more optimistic.
I love the Hogs. I love them.
Yeah, I'm not much just because I'm more of a talent guy, and I like to look at the talent on both sides of the field. And A&M is more talented on both sides of the ball. They just haven't been playing up to that.
They're talented to an extent on offense, but so bad. It's just so bad. Your talent can do all it's want, but to score 17 points against Miami and to score 14 against Appalachian State.
And only 31.
And they barely scored. They really struggled for the most part against whoever they played in the first game.
Sam Houston State. Yeah, they struggled. It's been no secret. We need to see A&M step it up. This is a really big game for Jimbo Fisher and Sam Pittman. Sam Pittman, what he's done at Arkansas has been phenomenal. I mean, he had a big win against them last year, but he's looking to get over the hump and start really be a legit top 10 team. And Jimbo Fisher.
What do you think? How many games does Jimbo need to lose before you put him on the hot seat for this year? And I know the buyout's brutal, but
I think he's already
got the
kind of on
money.
the hot seat. And he was a guy that going into the season, we had him as a top 5 coach, and I still not necessarily backing off that. But like this year it just seems like such a mismanagement of all the talent they have on offense. It's only 3 games in. I'm not trying to completely overreact, but it's been brutal. It's been really, really bad. I'm excited for this one. I think it's personally the best game on the slate. I know Tennessee, Florida is going to be a good one too, but this Aggies team, like we talk about them so much because they're one of the few teams that can really make some noise. And talent-wise, they can bang with Georgia and Bama. Really, only some of the few teams that can do that. The Aggies can. I can't wait for this game. It's going to be an absolute beast. It's going to be an absolutely great game.
Talk me up for -2 Hogs.
I love it. I'm penciling you for that. We'll circle back.
Yeah, I'm positive it is.
Well, we'll circle back to it. Hey, guys, we appreciate you guys checking us out, though. And if you do like the content, again, consider subscribing to the channel. We appreciate it, and we'll talk to y'all later.